Hello there and welcome. In this video, I got 10 tips and tricks that will help you to get a good start in Mind Over Magic. It's all things that are aimed to building a solid foundation, getting yourself a good foot into the game, and discovering all the things that are here in the early access. So that being said, early access means that this video might get outdated at some point, as I think many things will change. If anything on this list is not working anymore, please let me know in the comment section so I can update it. Now, let's get started with number one. This game has a survival loop that is currently very easy to crack. The fog comes closer every day, tries to kill your school. The mana font has a ritual to repel the fog, and the costs of that ritual are depending on how close the fog is to your school, which means if you are at this point where the fog will kill you in one day, you always just have to pay a bit of wood and a couple of gut berries, and that's that. So you don't need to worry about dying that much, as long as you keep in mind that you need to chop some trees. And what also helps a lot is to build yourself early on a research table. In the crafting section, you have the Arcane Secretary, which allows you to research, and then you go for the Domesticated Gutberries technology, unlocking Gutberry planters. From that point on, all you need is a few stones, and then you have to build just 2 or 3 of these gutberry planters, and you have everything you require for your ritual needs, and also your students and your staff can eat those. So the basic survival loop is complete once you have unlocked the rustic gourmet and rustic dining technologies, because at that point you can plant out bitter rice, which can be processed into bitter gruel, which is still a little bit of a horrid food, but it is not as horrid that it will drive your people insane. And with just these 3 technologies, you can practically stay alive forever. That's that. Number 2, I want to talk about the staff and the students and why you always will have both of these in your school and you need them. So the staff, it's quite obvious they can do a lot of different tasks that the students can't do, but the students are the only people that can tend to the refining beasts. Refining beasts are absolutely vital for the late game per se, or mid game and even early game phases of every school, as these monsters here allow you to create materials that you just will need. It's basically just a recycling machine that can be only taken care of by the students. Therefore, you are completely relying on these. Also, students can churn out adept scrolls. When you graduate them, you gain scrolls that allow you to hire better students, unlock technologies, and all manner of different things. So it's a constant cycle of hiring students, waiting until they have that yellow star, waiting until they go insane because they cannot stay forever in your school, and then graduating them. So you will need new students, though, at every time, because otherwise your refining beasts will lay still, and you will really feel that. Apart from that, students have the other advantage that you can assign them to these duties that nobody likes to do, like hauling, cleaning, and all those little things. So let's move on to number 3. I want to talk about conviction and why it's so important. Conviction is basically the moral system of this game, and just like with many survival games that you might or might not have already played, if the conviction goes too low, they will suffer a mental break. A mental break in this game is really vicious. Not only will they do something really stupid like destroying parts of your furniture or stuff of your school and whatnot, they will also lose one of their death save counters. And these are basically extra lives. And that means if somebody has a mental breakdown who doesn't have any death save counters left, or doesn't have any to begin with, students often start with 0, they will die from that mental breakdown. So therefore, it is really important that you keep the conviction under control and really try to be nice to your people, as they will die if you don't. And therefore, yeah, conviction has another really nasty mechanic that currently works like this. If your person loses a death save counter, they will also be really pissed for the next 30 days. That means they will also suffer -10 conviction again, or 30 days. So it can become really quickly a downward spiral, and therefore everything that gives plus conviction is really good in this game. Everything that gives minus conviction should be really avoided and destroyed as quick as possible out of your, and should be taken out of your school, like bad food and bad lighting that spawns void rooms. They give also 10 points of conviction debuff when they suck your mana out. There's lots of things that you can optimize. Which brings me directly to number 4. I want to talk about the assembly hall. This is one technology locked behind the basic rituals technology, and this is the spot where you can graduate your students. That means they can be taken out of school. So this is really one keystone technology that you should strive towards to once your school is stable, because students that have fully learned, they will grow restless at some point, so they need to graduate. But there is also the nice caveat to that there you can also make it a proper assembly hall. A assembly hall requires the ritual sigil and a certain amount of luxury. That amount of luxury is really low, and all you require are these solemn braziers that are locked behind the ritual accessories technology. Once you have an assembly hall, you can also retire staff. This is when you have everything under control. So basically, when a student starts to go insane, you can start graduating them. If they are fully learned, that is. If one of your staff starts to go insane, you can retire them instead of having them wreak havoc upon your school. Either way, the assembly hall is really good to keep your school under control, and I really can recommend to build one of these. Number 5, I want to talk about the endlessness of resources and the endlessness of building space. At the beginning of the game, you are rather limited with many things. Your foundation doesn't reach too far. You will notice that some resources are finite, like there's not much stone after a certain point, and all these things. But the game offers a solution to all of these problems. There is a technology basically for everything, and for example, stone and iron will be found here behind the rustic dining tree. There is at some point the Lavalinus dye, a refining beast that can turn out stone and iron, and also sculpt stone, but that's another thing. So that's where you can get yourself an endless source of these resources. You can also go over to this technology here, going places, found behind the domestic gut berries and all the way down there, allowing you to ultimately build your own foundation, which means you can build your school as wide as you want to. So until you hit these points, though, some things are rather limited, and you should respect the fact that stone and iron and all those things, which you aren't unlocking directly because you're lacking the arcane scrolls to do so, should be invested wisely. But it is for sure one thing that I want to stress out here. Everything in your school can be demolished and be repurposed. There is never any resource loss, so constructing is just always good. If you have an idea, just go for it. It's not a loss at all. If you need the resources elsewhere, the worst thing that you have to do is just to have you scrap it and rebuild it somewhere else. But resources and all these things are virtually endless in the game. You just have to go for it at a certain point. If you want to expand like crazy, like have a huge school, go for these technologies first, so you have a virtually endless access to the to room and the expansionary resources. If you go down this tree here, you can ultimately grow other plants that you require, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rather go over to number 6 and let's talk about combat preparations. At some point in the game, you will unlock the Underschool, and also when you're pushing back the fog further, you will sometimes have battles. So to be well prepared for battle, a couple of things you do require. Medical beds, locked behind the critical care technology. These are necessary to restore HP. No medical bed, no HP restored. If somebody is wounded, they will be pissed about that and they will lose conviction. So if you want to go to battle, by all means, have at least one medical bed available so the wounded can rest up. The other thing that I always like to prepare is I like to have a couple of wands in my back hand so I can recruit new people if somebody should die. You never know what might happen. And also try to farm out those crystals that are hanging out here. They sometimes contain consumables, and especially at the beginning of the game, these potions do make hell of a difference. They are quite hard to fetch. Later, you will be able to craft them, but right now, when you're starting out, they are really, really powerful, and you should absolutely crank them in wherever you can. Also, it pays off to check out where your characters want to stand. Some magic schools, like for example, water mages, are much stronger in the back row, so you might want to adjust your people like that. Every school has different qualities, so you can tinker around with builds. I don't want to go too deep into that, as you can really do a lot of different things, but it's darn important that you make sure that you have some place where your people can rest up. You check out how many consumables you can pilfer from the outside. These little gemstones, they hide sometimes behind those worm weeds here, like that. It's hard. I can't even click it properly, but you can see it. There it is. These guys. Go for these and then just save before you go into the battle so you can reload if anything goes horribly wrong. Game is early access and I found some battles felt a little bit more unbalanced than others. Now then, number 7, I want to talk about the skill levels and what they mean and how to improve these. So when you go into the magic and combats area here, you see that every mage has one main skill, that's a skill level, and secondary skills linked to other skill levels. The skill level does also have a huge impact on what kind of things you can or can't do. Especially mid and late game things require skill levels of 4 and higher. Therefore, increasing the skill level of your main school is damn important and should be something you should be focusing at some point. You will find various level 2 wands behind various technologies. So the dark wands are here in the necromancy tree, the elemental wands are here in the alchemy tree, and the earth wand is somewhere, if I remember correctly, between these two. All in all, you will be able to craft tier 2 wands that will allow you to have more talented people. You can also hire gift students that have harder challenges in their medallions, which also yield sometimes higher skill value rewards. Some medallions also increase the maximum cap of their skills. I don't know. Here, +1 dark skill cap. Sometimes you get lucky and they get a medallion for their main school. Either way, everybody who has a main skill level of 4 or higher is something you should absolutely value. Keep them under good care and turn them into staff and keep them, as they will be really important later down the road. Higher tiers of wands require higher tiers of reagents and items. And one thing I want to stress out when you are trying to craft higher tier wands, potions of recharging are the common denominator and a common bottleneck in the wand crafting process. So don't waste them. You shouldn't even be drinking them, as they are totally needed in your wand crafting process. So when you come over these, try to avoid consuming them and put them into the wand crafting process. Number 8, I want to talk about room types and keywords. So as you can see here, some of these rooms are specifically dining rooms, assembly halls, austere bedroom, yada yada yada. You can have the entire catalog here, what they do, and if you mouse over, you see also what's the requirement. These bedrooms, for example, need to have at least only beds, no other furniture stuff in there, and here it needs to be elevated. That's the bold written thing. Keywords like these are grounded, towered, skewed, lofted, private, isolated. These are randomly rolled whenever you start a new game. So your austere bedroom, unless you have the exactly same concoction like I do, will most likely not have the elevated trait as a necessity. So these all have different demands on the architecture, so you will always have some sort of a minigame around that. What I try to get towards to here is grounded rooms are really, really hard to come by. So the rooms at the very bottom of your school should always be valued a lot and should be used for those rooms that really need the grounded thing. And also the floor directly above the foundation of your school is most likely to be a victim of resculpting, as once you have a grounded room that also wants to be skewed, it will be really interesting to put that into your build. What I'm trying to get towards to here is that value these these grounded rooms, because they are rare, and also the floor directly above the grounded area. Well, you will replace that, so don't put anything too important directly above the grounded area, and try to get a little bit further up for more permanent installations. I mean, everything in this game is movable, so it's actually more like a nuisance than anything else, but it is often quite cool if you don't have to pretzel up your brain to get things together again. If you already know that these areas here are valuable, and at the beginning of the game, you won't be able to unlock all the rooms already that need to be grounded. And it's also useful to know that this area here might be needed to get some weird shapes together that you need on the grounded floor. Apart from that, there's tons of other things, as the room system is really one little conundrum for itself. So I'll leave it like that. These I found quite helpful and easy to install, though. Number 9, I want to show you the consumption control thingy, as I find this really, really important to know about, as it gives you a lot of power. So you can here decide which group should be eating what. You can also add new groups that can have all manner of different properties. That can be staff, they can be quilted, they can be everything. You just add a new group in there, add the rules that you want, and this way you can add new consumption rules for people that you want to have to go through these. For really basic things, for example, you might want to forbid the consumption of gut berries at the beginning, as you need them for the rituals. It will be soon very, very unimportant, but that's only one thing. You can also assign a group that's only one specific person that needs to be very happy for a medallion quest, and allow them to only eat the finest of foods, for example. That's one other thing that you could do. There's plenty of things that you can use this restriction menu, but it's really, really powerful to know about that. One other thing that I found really useful to know about is that doors can also have a configuration about who's allowed to access them. There's plenty of medallion quests, for example, where somebody has to do something alone, and you can go and press them via schedule to do something at a certain time, then you lock the door behind them, and boom, you have that already done. With a combination of consumption control and access denial and such things, it's much easier to fulfill medallion quests, and I found these quite invaluable. Number 10. The last thing on my list is I want to talk about early game bottlenecks. I already talked a little bit about that, but I want to give you a couple of tips that will help you to get smooth sailing into the mid-game. So, I already mentioned it, iron and stone, well, they won't be spawning again as far as I've seen. I'm not so 100% sure about iron, but I'm really sure that stone just doesn't respawn without any further things. Of course, you will find stone down there in the school, but like I said already, you have refining beasts that do this. But the real bottlenecks early on will be most likely Ice Flower and Phoenix's Kiss. These two flowers are needed in so many different things that you want to have early on. You need them in your medical beds, you need them in your dining tables, you need them in the solemn pedestals, you need them in the ritual sigil, you need them for different lights that are beautiful to look at. So the braziers need the phoenix flowers, and the solemn braziers need the ice petals, and the candelabra needs the phoenix light. You see where this is getting towards to. This flower is therefore really, these two flowers are really notorious in the early game, and you can easily shut that off by just using your first set of arcane scrolls to research Boil and Bubble as the first thing. As you see here, this will unlock alchemy, which is really nice to have early on, but it'll also unlock the domestication of ice flowers and Phoenix's Kiss. And this will help you to build your school really the way you want to. As soon as you have the technologies here with spice things up available, you also can just create building material at your leisure, and this is relieving you from most of the early game bottlenecks. There's, of course, a couple of other things that you will also require, but I really haven't struggled with anything as hard as with the Ice Flowers and the Phoenix's Kiss early on. As with all the early game bottlenecks, it will easily become one of the easy resources quickly, but it's something that's worth knowing when you're just starting out, in my opinion. Alright, plenty of things that I could still add into the mix. I hope you found it helpful nevertheless. Leave me your comments down below. I really love to hear back from you. Leave me a thumbs up. If you'd be so kind to subscribe, I'd be also very, very happy. Down there in the description box, you will find also plenty of links. Among these, my Discord server, Patreon, PayPal, and Buy Me a Coffee. If you'd be interested in supporting this channel, I'd be super delighted about that. I also offer a channel membership system, which is practically just a donation system, but you can watch the videos before I actually put them out on the YouTube. I just have them scheduled for release, and everybody can watch them a little bit earlier, but nothing wild. Either way, thanks for watching this video until the very end. Enough of my ramblings here. Thanks for still being around, and I hope you had a great time. See you soon. Bye-bye.